As we conclude 2020, which has been a long year for most of us, I think it's so important and so essential to our success and our personal growth, our personal development, to take time to reflect, recharge, and refresh. And so, first is reflection. Taking the time out to really think about the things that we've been through in this past year, the things that we've accomplished, the things that we've failed at. And, from a business standpoint, if you're still in business at the end of 2020, that's something to be proud of. That's an accomplishment in itself, because this pandemic, it's wreaked havoc on so many businesses, and they say 1 in 4 businesses have failed in 2020. So if we're still in business, that's something to be thankful for. So taking the time to reflect and to be grateful for the experiences in 2020 and identify from those experiences how it is that we can ultimately improve in the new year in 2021. And so understanding that you are your most important asset. And it's so important that if you want to build your personal brand, if you want to further, grow your profit, your revenue in 2021, you have to make sure that you take time, out to recharge and to refuel, because you can't go into 2021 on an empty battery expecting to, maximize, yourself, to maximize your business. So it's important that we take that time to do just that. And so that also allow us, the right mindset to make sure we have the right energy and the right focus, so we can have the right clarity for how it is that we're going to do certain things differently, make certain moves happen, and strategically plan for 2021 to be our best year yet. So 2021 will be a year of success, a year of growth, a year of turning dreams into reality. 2021 will be a new year with new profit. And one of the things that we'll discuss is strategic planning or strategic thinking. And in order to make this a year of new profit and new growth and greater success, it's important that we create clarity and we have a strategy. And that's what strategic planning or strategic thinking is all about. It's the art of strategically identifying how you will outperform your competition. It's identifying how you will raise and elevate your game and your business, and identifying how and what will give you the advantage over your competitors. So just like politicians devise campaign strategies, to win, certain elections, football, basketball, sports coaches, they come up with strategies for their players to execute to help them win championships. Businesses and corporations and entrepreneurs have to have great strategies to survive and to thrive. And as an entrepreneur and a business owner, you should conduct strategic planning as the owner of your business, and also include other key executives, partners, key decision makers. You can even have a consultant that you utilize to help you map out a plan for success. And so here are a few main areas that I want to discuss and share with you on today's episode regarding strategic planning. The very first thing is reviewing or creating a mission. So what is the overall mission of your company? Why are you in business? What do you want the business to accomplish or to achieve? What is the purpose of the business? How do you want to serve your customers? Is your mission still current, and is it still relevant? So each year, as we go into 2021, we also want to review our mission to identify if it's still relevant, if it's still current. And so it doesn't need to be tweaked. The core of the mission should always usually remain the same, but it should always be reviewed to identify if it needs to be adjusted and where it can be tweaked, and to make sure that we're doing the things that ultimately brings us a step closer to fulfilling our mission. So here are some examples of some mission statements that I'll share with you. To inspire humanity both in the air and on the ground, that's the mission statement of JetBlue. To connect the world's professionals to make them more productive and successful, that's the mission statement of LinkedIn. Amazon's mission statement is to be Earth's most customer-centric company, where customers can find and discover anything they might want to buy online and endeavor to offer its customers the lowest possible prices. And Nike's is to bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world. And if you have a body, you are an athlete. So those are the mission statements of some famous companies that we all know of. And so everything that we do as a business or as an entrepreneur should be centered around furthering, advancing, and accomplishing the mission. So consider, how do I spend the majority of my time each day within the business? How much time am I spending doing things that ultimately help to advance the business towards the fulfilling of the mission? So when we look at Amazon's mission, it says to be Earth's most customer-centric company, where customers can find and discover anything they may want to buy online and endeavor to offer its customers the lowest possible price. So Amazon is always looking to identify the lowest possible prices for their customers, identifying how they can add more inventory and more items that customers can buy online, and how can it be more user friendly, so that customers can be better satisfied. So that's the mission. The second thing, we talk about strategic planning for our business, how do we create greater results, greater outcomes, greater success, is to review or to create the core values. And so having clear company values helps to ensure as well that all employees and team members are working towards the same goals. They ultimately support the company's mission and vision. And every decision should be aligned with the core values. Your core values are the manner in which you go about doing business. It's how you go about fulfilling the mission. So they're ultimately the keys to success. So our core values, here at our companies, is number one, it's being a growth driver. And what that means is we're looking for persons that ultimately are an asset and not a liability. We're looking for persons that ultimately, as a result of their presence, they make the organization better. And they're also one who's centered around further growing oneself. They want to be the very best at what it is that they ultimately do. So they're also engaged in continuous learning, continuous growth. We also have being ethically accountable. We want to do things right ethically, but also we want to ensure that each person is accountable. And being enthusiastically dedicated is another core value of ours. And so that means as well having people on our team that are willing to sacrifice and go above and beyond for the greater good of the team, the clients, the families that we serve, the customers. And so it's not just about what happens when it's convenient, but what happens when it's inconvenient, but it's what's needed for the greater good. So creating and reviewing your core values, these are the steps or the keys in which how you actually accomplish the mission. The third thing is conducting a SWOT analysis. And this is where you identify your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So SWOT is SWOT. So your strengths is the S. These are things, of course, that you do well. So identifying all the things that you ultimately do well. Your weaknesses, of course, are the things that you identify that must be and have to be improved upon. You want to identify your opportunities. What are the opportunities that exist in the marketplace? Do I need to pivot this year? If so, where can I pivot? Do I need to further diversify? Do I need to add certain sub-services to my main product or my service line? And identifying your threats. So the threats are the things that could potentially harm or impact, your business this year. So let's think about the pandemic for a second. Let's just speak about the church, for instance. There were certain churches or other business entities that ultimately were impacted differently by the pandemic as well, based upon their ability to pivot, based upon certain things that they ultimately had in place, based upon the strategic plan that they ultimately put forth. So, for instance, you have certain entities or facilities, let's say, the church, that may not have had strategically things in place to be online, to be digital, to have a digital, presence, and for, their members to be able to view service online, or be able to, contribute offerings or tithes, do all those things electronically from home or from a remote location. And so for those churches that had those things in place, then they were able to also see, greater sustainability. And for those, entities or churches in this example that, everything was necessarily, face to face or at the physical building, and there's no way to, give, there's no way to view service, then, they may have been, impacted adversely, greater than, the other church. So everything is about your strategic planning and your strategic thinking. So when you're conducting a SWOT analysis as well, it's very important to make sure that the following areas are reviewed in the SWOT process. One is going to be your operations and your human resources. So when you think about operations and human resources, you think about your personnel, your staffing, your training process. Do I need to improve my training process for my new hires, for my current staff? Handbook. What does that ultimately look like? Do I have a handbook? Do I need to create a handbook? So when you talk about as well, staffing and personnel, it's very, very important to also make sure that there's an accountability chart in place for the staff that ultimately outlines, what each person is responsible for in their respective role, and what does success, or what are the outcomes that need to be yielded from the respective role or position. And then asking the question, do I have the right person in place? Is this the right team member? Do they get it? Do they understand what they're supposed to be doing? Do they want it? Do they want to do it? Do they have the capacity to do it? And do they actually do it? And so those are questions that you have to pose, and that you have to think about within every respective role, every respective position. And based upon the answering of those questions will help guide what the next step should ultimately be. Also, when it comes to marketing, you want to conduct a SWOT as it relates to your marketing strategy, business development, your finances, understanding, your SWOT of your finance and your accounting department. Do I have the financial structure set up in place that needs to be set up? Do I have, an accounting or payroll software, a payroll system? Do I have these things in place? So that's the process of a SWOT analysis. The next thing is taking time to review your financial statements. So, of course, if there are no financial statements, then that's something in 2021 that has to be ultimately prioritized very, very high, because if we don't have financial statements, then on a monthly basis we cannot gauge truly where we stand as it relates to profitability. So in reviewing the financial statements, you want to identify as well where you can cut expenses. The financial statements are going to tell you, okay, well, hey, this is the amount of money that I spent in these various categories, whether it's in payroll, maybe it's in, of course, rent or utilities, or independent contractors, or whatever it may be. So where can I cut expenses? Where did I go over budget? You also want to review for, gross profit, which is basically, taking, your revenue minus, the direct cost that it took you to ultimately render or perform that service. Is that margin great enough? Do I need to look at that? Do I need to, increase or marginally increase my prices this year because my margins aren't ultimately there? And so the next thing, when it comes to the financial side, is to complete a budget for the new year. So create a business budget for the year. And so the way that you do that as well is you kind of start by as well identifying what the break-even point is. And so what the break-even point is basically that's the number in which I have to hit in order to, not lose money, but I'm also, not yet making money. So once I hit this break-even point, I know that once I surpass that, then I'm ultimately making money. I'm now profiting. Now, if I don't hit this break-even point, that means that I'm ultimately losing money. So I need to identify what my break-even point ultimately is. The next thing is completing forecasting. And this is where you want to forecast in detail what it is that you want to accomplish. Being specific, how much revenue do I want to generate this year? How much do I want my salary to be this year? And any other things that you ultimately want to do financially this year. If I want to, allocate, so much for, training and development. I want to allocate so much for, a car allowance or car expense. You have to complete that forecasting, and as well as, your budget for the year. And when you're doing your forecasting, you want to actually break down, the steps of what is needed to ultimately get there and accomplish that. So what I mean by that is, let's say, if you want to increase your revenue by $100,000, okay, saying that is one thing, but then actually pinpointing in order to create additional revenue by $100,000, well, how many clients do I ultimately have to, begin to increase and who I ultimately serve? How many clients do I need on a monthly, a weekly, a daily basis that's going to equate or translate into the additional $100,000 in revenue that I want? So breaking it down to know exactly what I have to do, how many sales I have to make in order to get this revenue. So that's what forecasting, looks like. And based upon your SWOT, you then want to set goals with timelines and identifying who is responsible for making things happen. So writing out your goals, for the complete year, and then also then breaking them down based upon each quarter. First quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, and then also doing a long-term projection or long-term goals of where you want to be, 3 to 5 years from now. What does that ultimately look like? And based upon where you want to be 3 to 5 years from now, then you also need to make sure that your goals over the next year are pushing you towards being on pace to where it is that I want to be, desire to be in 3 to 5 years. And so it's very important that as we take time and conduct strategic planning or strategic thinking, that we write everything down and put it in a format that you and other key persons, leaders, managers, partners can easily reference, because this is not something that you do once a year and then you just tuck it away. This has to be a living or a live document, and something that we ultimately go back to and reference on a consistent basis to help us stay aligned on meeting the goals of 2021. And the next thing is investing into a project management tool. I think is another very, very key component of how we can ultimately create greater profitability in 2021. And project management tools such as there's Asana, there's Monday.com, and there's a few others that that are out there. Some of these are free platforms, and so with that is it helps you to keep on track, keep on task, and towards, the deadlines, towards the objectives that you want to accomplish on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly, quarterly, and annual basis. And you can assign tasks and responsibilities to different persons who are responsible for completing these things that ultimately are needed to, of course, achieve the goals and the outcomes that we're looking to achieve. Once you do that, it's important that we take the information. So as we create the mission, we review the mission, we identify the core values, we review those core values, is to make sure that in the new year, the mission, the vision, and the core values are further emphasized within the team, within the organization, within the people that I ultimately hire, making it a point of emphasis to make sure everyone ultimately is aware and they know what these things are. Because once again, that's the purpose behind everything, is the mission and the core values. That's how we conduct ourselves as professionals. That's how we want the culture to be. That's what the environment is, in terms of the expectation of the environment. That's spelled out within the mission, the vision, and the core values. So making the core values and the mission and the vision a point of emphasis. And then lastly is being sure to discuss the information, the action items, where the vision, the direction in which we're going with the applicable parties. So as we think about 2021, we need to look at the things as well, as I mentioned, that were highlights, the things that were good, the things that we did well, and further build upon those things. Looking at the things that we ultimately failed at, identifying what went wrong. If I would have done this differently, then I could have created a different outcome or a different result. Am I where I need to be as it relates to technology? Am I at a point whereby I can serve my customers in more than just one delivery or service method? Is my product or my service, is it easily accessible? So all these things are things that you want to consider as you're conducting your strategic planning and your strategic thinking for 2021. And it's so important that we take that time out to really plan and to think and to strategize how to create the success that we want to see. Not just say, I want to be successful in 2021. It's going to be a new year, a new me. But what are the tangible steps that I'm going to take to create that success? Who do I need to hire? Who do I need to go find to ultimately help increase my bottom line? Who do I need to go bring in to ultimately increase my marketing, sales, business development? How do I need to improve my employee satisfaction? How can I improve my customer engagement, my customer satisfaction? Do I have the things in place that ultimately help me to measure where these things ultimately stand? Or am I just kind of guessing what my customer satisfaction is, what my client engagement is? If I don't have these things, then one of the things in 2021, in order to further improve that, I've got to first be able to measure it, to know how we're tracking, how we're trending. And then once we do that, we know, okay, well, we're not trending in the right direction. So let us identify why. And then from there, we can make the proper adjustments that need to be in place. So utilizing, your mind, your brain, and utilizing, other, experts within, your industry, within your company, to create a strategy, for success is key in a new year with new profit. So as we conclude 2020, make sure you take the time out to ensure that 2021 is your best year yet, both personally as well as professionally. And it starts with taking the necessary and applicable action. So it's up to you, and I know you'll make it happen. So 2021 will be a year of success. 2021 will be a year in which we turn dreams into reality. And 2021 will be a year of our greatest profit yet.